Well, hello. In this onboard episode for October, I just wanted to do a follow up to the previous preview of, I was showing some of the works that were in progress and stuff. And some of the things I was, nothing major, but some of the things I had my hands on these last few weeks. And I showed a picture of this guy, Infanata, from the final few episodes of the Spider-Man cartoon series from the 60s, where Ralph Bakshi had taken up his place and took the reins for the last few episodes, where things got weird and psychedelic. But anyway, this drawing of Infanata, there's a few, and I'm going to reserve it for a section on that particular episode and my tribute to it. But I just wanted to throw this one in because the last picture I showed of it was horrendous. Basically, if you remember, I just basically pushed the brush up on the page. Yeah, here's a photocopy of that in case you forgot what it did look like. Something like that, right? The paints were just barely being applied. Yeah, the fact that it was out there and that I had left it hanging there, it was driving me crazy, so I had to follow up with it. So basically, I went ahead with that same method as with the recent Goblin picture I put together in tribute to the cartoon series and John Romita. And this one I went with it just the same. Learned a few things on the way. Now, what I was most concerned with in doing, I shouldn't say most, I mean, put it this way, I had mentioned that I wanted to start incorporating brushwork, inking with a brush, something I'm unfamiliar with, right, for some of these lines and stuff. And if you look at the outlines, you'll see it has a brushwork quality to it. But the truth is, never did get around to it on this one. I went with pens just the same. I don't know, I'm squeamish about it. I am interested in picking up the brush and learning that. I want to go old school on these lines and stuff. These are things that I remember from childhood comics and some of the coloring books and stuff. And plus the brush technique, apparently the more you look into it, you keep hearing the same answer. The brush was apparently more efficient, and if you were good with the brush, you could bang things out, quickly, which meant, more capital. And, that could benefit the company and you if you were good and fast. But anyway, I want to do it for its, for aesthetics. I just think it has a quality that can't be matched, and I want to get into that. But it didn't happen with this day. Now, let me tell you something about all that's really left to tell you about this particular one is the color method and a few things learned along the way. Now, as I said, I went with acrylic on paper. Now, what you end up with when you do that, if anyone decides to do that, and I wouldn't recommend it, and I don't recommend it, but you never know. It's just, it's a matter of, it's that stationary thing where I'm appealing to people that don't have the means to get all the equipment or the materials that they need, but they can do things perhaps on the cheap and have fun. The thing about acrylic on paper is your paper itself, it will bubble and crinkle. Now, but the important thing to remember is, who cares, right? Like over here, you can see a portion of this. I'm not going to move the camera. But this is a photocopy of that Goblin picture. And it's fine, right? When you make your copies, understand that all that bubbling and crinkling, you're not going to see it. You're just going to get the straight image the straight color, so don't worry about that. That's just a matter of flattening it. If it really bugs you, get out your iron and, you know what I mean. Don't worry about that so much. Now, one of the things I learned during this particular portrait creation was, oh, and by the way, this is a rendition of one of the, I guess you'd call them cells in the actual cartoon series. I think for this particular episode, as well as the Rocket Robin Hood, which is a parallel of that, there's some stuff on that you can look into on YouTube too, where they compare both, right? They compare both of them and show this, you know, it's the same cells. And I think for Infanata, there's like 6 or 7. I've done 4 now. A headshot, a bust shot, a full body shot with him with his arms above his head, and another one with his arms above his head, but it's not a full body shot. It's just a larger upper body shot. There's other ones I'd like to do as well, like there's one with the figure on he's standing on a severed hand, if you remember the cartoon. Yeah, he's standing on a severed hand. Another one with his, he's got, how is it? He's got his fist out in front of his face, angry. And the other one is one towards the end, where he has his hands, he's holding his hands up to shield himself. They know all my secrets, they'll destroy me. It's that end sequence where he needs to get the hell out of Dodge or whatever. But yeah, I'd love to, you know, the truth is it's so much fun. I'd love to sit down and do them all. And for these images, what's important to recognize is that that's what we're shooting here for. I mean, that's what I was shooting for here in rendering these. That you're going for, well, just call it what it is. It's a simplicity of line where you're not talking about feathering, shading, and heavy blacks to give a sense of density. And it's cartoon, right? So, you know, those outlines are the most important. So that's what I'm going for there. But there were things that happened along the way that inspired me to reconsider what these images could be. But anyway, back to the paint itself. So you're going to experience the crinkling of the paper, sure, and some bubbling. But it doesn't matter when you go to do the copies. It all flattens out, and that stuff does not show up, so don't worry about it. Now, one of the things I found about these are, you know, dollar store, discount store type $4, well, Canadian, $4, $3 and $4 bottles of acrylic paint, okay? You know, it's cheap stuff. Now, a lot can be said about that, you know. Watch, if you're going to get critical about your colors, you know, test the paints that you buy. And I'll tell you why. Because first off, right away, you see this, the red for the headshot here, the red here. It's listed as bright red. Okay, but it's not. Okay, that's more of a, what do you call it, cadmium? Cadmium red, right? And yeah, it's not bright red. It's more, it has a bit of an orange tinge to it, you know. But anyway, just the same, you know. You know, those things can be altered if you've got enough color. And you know, on the side you have some white and black acrylic too to work with too. Which brings me along to the next topic. And now we look to the blue here. Oh, blue, you say? It looks black to me. Okay, right. See? This is a shot from outer space. And in the actual cartoon, you realize that there are a lot of stars, quasars, background, little explosions and stuff. Not to mention at times that stuff that Bakshi was crazy about in the last episodes with the background visuals. Very abstract, you know. Really cool stuff, actually, which would, you know, would inspire a later project for me, for sure. I'm really considering going after this with paints, even oils. I don't know. I'm going to make that decision. But right now, I wanted a background to show that, but I didn't want to go straight black. I did not want to go straight black. I don't know if this camera will pick it up, but this black that you see here in the inks, the outlines, in the eye, the mouth, all of that black, that's still, fine liners, Sharpies, no India ink, but just, fine line markers or pens. I wanted to keep that. Oh, important to note, too. Oh, okay, well, wait a minute. Before we... These should be rehearsed. Before I go into the blue of the background, let me get back to the red and say a couple things about it. Not all these paints and the pigment they hold react the same way. Let me explain something about that. What I mean by that is, for example, this red, it just doesn't come up unless you put a second coat in, It was very stringy. I got a lot of brush through it. You could see a lot of the stroke inside. Didn't work. But I put in that second coat, voila. It's great, right? However, when you do that, understand that although your outlines will still show, they're fogged over, they're hazed over, right? They're kind of clouded out. So you can go back with your markers and retrace your outlines and stuff. It sounds it's counterproductive in the sense that, this technique you wouldn't use for production work. You're trying to crank things out fast, okay? It's not about that, doing this. What they were doing back then, making the cartoon, that was a different story. But doing this, using this technique, understand that it's going to take some time. You have to go back. So you go back and you put in your outlines, and you got something going on there. Now, and that sharpens everything up. Now, I don't know if you can see this or can pick this up, but along the top of the skull here, and this making its way down to the jaw here, you can see, I don't know if you can see, it almost looks like, little spots of the red, like in blots, like suggesting almost like bumps or something. Now, I just want to put this in there. That was deliberate. That's from taking the end of the paintbrush and just, dabbing it. Instead of spreading it, just washing it through, dabbing it. I think what I was trying to go with there was an idea of either old texture on an older crustacean, right? Or an actual pattern in the actual coloration of the shell. You know what I mean? And that gave me another idea. I went, wow, that would be something to play this up as a real crustacean, right? And go to town with, a real painting, using some oils or even acrylic, and getting into detail and making that realistic. But that is not the goal of this series right now. And I say series because there are several others, and we can take a peek at those, but those two are not finished. But progress report, right? Okay, back to the blue thing I was getting around to talking about here. Those things in the backgrounds that I talked about, the stars, quasars, explosions, etc., they haven't been put in. And what I'm going to do is go back and look at the actual show again and decide if I want to actually put the components that I'm seeing on the screen in, or make my own stuff. I say my own, but what I'd probably resort to is like Kirby Crackle and my own space stuff kind of thing, whatever. Maybe I'll do both, right? I just might do both. I mean, there's another standing figure of this guy that I've done that you'll see in a minute, where he's surrounded by these weird shapes and stuff that I've seen on the TV screen. I ended up blanking them out with the blue wash here, because I'm not sure about them. I think maybe I'll, instead of drawing them, I'll paint them right in or whatever. But that's all undetermined. Right now you got the basic figure and you got a background wash to work upon or on top of. we'll see how that goes. And then there's the garment and the what do you call those? What do you call those? A brooch, right? He has brooches on both shoulders, which holds up his tunic. I just took a white and I added some light brown, worked it in until I just barely got a hint of an off white. I should have went a little darker, but that part really didn't bother me, so I said, the hell with it. I just kept going on it. Now, about this paint. Now, I washed it through with a thick brush, and when I was looking at it, I didn't feel like, I didn't get the feeling that, I'm going to have to do a different coat. This pigment, although the same brand of paint, completely different dynamics. Plus, when I was working it through, you could see portions of the lighter of the two colors. Now here's what I did, actually. I started with a peacock blue, right? And then, I guess it was about the actual blop or puddle of paint I used was about 2 fingernail sizes in circumference, right? And then I added like 2 or 3 black just drops of the black acrylic and worked it in. Now, one of the things about working your own colors and stuff, I remember back in the day, one of the main rules they'll tell you is never, never use your blacks in your colors, or never use your, right? Never use, don't do that. Don't reach your colors with a black, And, I get that. A lot can be said about that. I'll just start by saying that, blow me. All right? Don't tell me, okay? Okay? Some of these rules just, because it gave me exactly the color I was looking for, and I've done it before with oil paint, where I did a background of, it was a Greek woman on a beach, and it was nighttime, and I wanted a sky full of stars, but I didn't want pure black. I wanted a lit skyline, right? So I used this deep blue, and it's hard to pick up, but when you're right up on it, you can see the blue in it. Anyway, it works, folks, for certain things. Remember that. So, no, I mean, I don't mean to be insulting. That was going a bit too far, but you can do these things. If they work and you get the pigment that you want, then go with it. Go for it. No rules. You understand? End products, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that was the one that was already shared in the preview, right? Now there's a couple more I'd like to show you and explain what I'm thinking about doing. So before I do that, just to mention again, not sure where I'm going to go with these backgrounds. You'll get a chance to see it when I put them in. I might do 2 of these, meaning do another photocopy of this, do the same red, put in the same blue, or maybe even some of that psychedelic stuff, right? And either, there's options here. Either put in the actual components that are on the actual film, the old cartoon, or put in my own space backgrounds, whatever. Either way, plan on having fun with it. Now let's take a look at another image that was under the paintbrush this week. Right, and so there we go. Here's that full body shot, right? They actually use this image in like different segments of the same episode, right? Sometimes he's flying, sometimes he's standing on something, right? And the something sometimes changes, right? But it's the same pose, it's the same thing tacked on there with the jaw moving, right? The only animation at times is the mouth moving on that. In that series a lot. There were a lot of tricks that Bakshi mentioned, making up for time and cutting corners and stuff. And sometimes, as grateful as I am for the series, it sounds to me like Ralph himself, he's, I think he's not ashamed to have been working on it, but I think he knows that a lot of the work wasn't quite where he knew it could have been. He's what I mean is, I don't think he's as proud as some of the outcomes with it. Just put it that way, right? He talks about for example, saving time by showing the swinging sequences of Spidey, like stretch it out for more minutes, right, to fill up the program when there wasn't as much content and things like that. But that's all good, for a '70s kid. It was just wonderful. I think it's great. And I think some of those comic book historians and film historians out there need to get a hold of Ralph. I'm not sure. I mean, last time I checked, he's in his 80s, If you want to start asking questions, and try this on for size, people. Like when you're talking about paying a tribute or something, a lot of people are going to be triggered by your info session or your video based on them having an interest in that particular person or character or comic book or whatever the hell it is, right? Already. So, it's just a suggestion, but try not to do that usual thing when people are, they'll do something like, someone will come up with a video about a certain celebrity or rock star, actor, or something of the sort, and it'll say something like, the rumors were true. His daughter speaks out years later. Now we know, right? And you're thinking, oh, gee, what the hell is that? That's juicy. I want to get a piece of that, right? I know a lot about this person, so what are we talking about? And then they make you sit through a half hour of that subject's biography, telling you all the things you already goddamn well know. Well, I think sometimes we should be cutting to the chase. Like, I mean, we lost John Romita last year now, right? And the thing is, I have so many questions I'd love to ask him about what was going on. Not that he'd remember everything maybe not, because, it's work, right? But anyway, but now you don't get the chance. Because if you look and see what's happening, you see people that keep asking the same questions. Now, most of the historians will ask the first question, so can you tell us about when did you first start drawing? Who cares? Anyway, I guess that's kind of important, but, it ain't gonna... We already know those things from 18, 19 different interviews, right? We know this, right? So get to the questions that haven't been asked. And if you're out there and you're going to be asking Ralph questions, start asking him about the questions. Look at the work and ask him questions about this. I noticed this, and how was that? And was that just you? And who helped with this? Ask right? Get the detailed questions in there, because once he's gone, he's gone. And talking about gone, I remember watching one interview where Ralph was talking about the fact that he was actually offered a lot of the work, the cells of these programs. You understand? The originals. And what had happened? He didn't bother with it, or he didn't care about them at the time, or something like that. They're lost somewhere. Perhaps someone got a hold of them. Perhaps they'll come up somewhere, someday, or whatever. But that's what I'm talking about. Like, once things are gone, they're gone. So that could be personal photographs of you, your family, and stuff. If some of the photographs are important enough, I would be making copies to make sure that a lot of your own family members all have them. It has nothing to do with what people care about and what they don't care about, because quite often the kids, the next generation, are very much interested in things that perhaps Dad wasn't, or perhaps Uncle Joe wasn't, or you know what I mean? But, their mom was, or their brother was, or whatever. So once stuff's gone, it's gone for good. So start asking him the proper questions. But anyway, so this whole series was based on this little project was dedicated to as a tribute and appreciation of this particular episode and that cartoon run, just like the Gobby one, right? But a different time when Bakshi came into it. Yeah, so again, when you look at this one, we got the same wash. I used the same colors, the peacock blue, blackened down, and splotched in some of the lighter shades of the peacock blue inside it, mixed it, marbled it up. When you're up on top of it, you can see it. You know, it's more liquid looking when you're seeing it. I don't know what this video is, if it's doing it justice, but I'll tell you, these colors, once I got them in and I retraced my inkings and my outlines, it really popped. And again, these are cartoon images, right? Not necessarily comic book images, the difference, right? Going for that coloring book quality where the lines are very simple. I think some of these lines I'll retrace a bit because I put them in after washing in the off-white color for the toga and stuff, right? But yeah, I'll probably go over them again. Not expand them too much, but just darken them a little. And that's fine, but it's looking great. In this particular one, I was going for... There was more background stuff than these lumps of rock and mud or whatever they were. If you go back and look at the cartoon, you cannot tell what these damn things are. A lot of it was just garbly-gook thrown in, right? Very strange shapes in the background, spirals and stuff that look like they might be architecture or might be a plant. It's very weird stuff. And there was more of it drawn in here. I had attached, there was a root that came out of this one here that I put in from the cartoon, and but then I blotched over it because I realized, you know, I don't even know if I'm going to use those things at all. I might even put in my own stuff, or I'll go back and actually paint those images in from inspired by the cartoon and put in the stars and all that stuff too. But we'll see. So all of these right now at this point are the basic figure, their outlines, and the background color. That's all there is to it right now. Okay? And we'll pick up with the other stuff. But the thing is, in doing that, I might use the previous photocopies of the original art to allow a couple clear panels for some different experiments with the color and the background. If I do, you'll get a chance. You know, you'll know. And the final one to show for today, anyway, just the same. Yeah, these were all done in the same evening. The painting laid down anyway. Just got going on it, and it would dry. I think I walked away from it for an hour at one point and came back to it, you know. I'd let something dry, come back to it, rework the inks. Now, these inks are applied after this, again, this off-white wash was put in the toga, right? And they were put in afterwards because that was another thing about, see, it's a very strange thing. Like, you can have all the same company making your acrylic paints, but you'll find from pigment to pigment, and it has nothing to do with the darkness of the actual color, if that makes sense. But they don't all react the same way. For example, I'd go over this with 2 coats, right? After there's an inked outline and all that, with 2 coats, and you could still see the outline. When I washed over this, right, with 1 coat, never mind the second, all the ink work underneath was lost. You couldn't see it at all. It scared me for a bit, and then I took a look and carefully, I went back to the program and I looked at what was there that I had covered up, and yeah, it's basic. If you go and watch the program, you'll see it's not the same, but it's, But anyway, I put in these lines, but I've left them the way they are without thickening them or broadening them. Because I think this portion, if I'm going to do the thing with the brushwork, this portion, it would make sense to do it here, right? Look at all the lines to do it. And get all those lines looking like paintbrush lines. That would be just great. Also, I think this here, this portion here, right on the outside here. Yeah, I think that could be his arm rather than toga. Yeah, I'm thinking I might have goofed there. But I noticed actually on the cartoon, you'll look and sometimes you'll see that, you know, here's a differentiation or differential between the toga and the skin up here, right? His shell, right? And you'll see the two different colors, and then it'll go to another cell, and the colors are the same. You know, this is the same color as the toga. You know, so it happens. So I don't know. I haven't checked this out, but I'm thinking that should have been the arm. If I go back to the cartoon, it would not surprise me if I found that they did in fact paint it this color too, and that's probably what I went with. I don't know. I'll find out soon enough. So that's it. That's where I left off with those. There was the other drawing of the body shot I showed on the last video. You can go back and look at that. I'm not going to dig it out of the sheets just right now. Figured I'd wrap this one up. Because these are gonna end up on a different video anyway in tribute, right? But yeah, so just to give an idea of what they look like once you lay the paint down. So we're talking 2 coats, acrylic, what was called bright red, but it's not really. You can use the bright red, but I'm glad this is the color that came out on that one. For the blue wash, it's a peacock blue with just a few dots of black to darken it up, to give you the impression of a dark sky, but not quite black, if you get me. I just thought it would be better to do that if I'm going to be adding Kirby Crackle and stuff and making it look more interesting. Even greens would look kind of cool. But anyway, yeah. And then this is a white with a light brown, making it an off-white, which I intend on using the paintbrush. If not, I'll be doing another one. A lot of these I might be doubling up on to try different things for the coloring. You know, I get obsessive about these things, but we'll see. We'll see how it turns out and whether or not we're going to move forward or not. Thanks.